having to carry that. It means that businesses, when there's no electricity, they have to then make an alternative plan. And that alternative plan comes at a great cost. So we are here today to then say, we will stand with the people of South Africa, we'll stand with the people of Gauteng, and the ANC must take full responsibility for the chaos that they've landed this country in. And we are in Gauteng saying that we need to have an alternative here, we need to have a plan. We are envying the Western Cape in terms of what they've been able, to start initiating, where, they now, when there's stage 2 or stage 3, they are not really affected as much by the outages. Whereas here in Gauteng, there's not even a single plan. We are now hearing time and time again from Panyaza Lesufi, there is going to be an announcement, but like the e-toll saga, we're just going to hear that until after the elections. We're not really going to get straight answers in terms of what needs to be done. We need to make sure that when we get out of this court, we have two things, as Kwena has said. One is that this load shedding, continuous load shedding, needs to be declared an unconstitutional issue. And also the 30%, nobody can afford it. The people, if you look at what SALGA has been reporting, if you look at what the Auditor General has been saying, if you look at what COGTA reports are saying, municipalities are struggling because people are not able to afford to pay for exorbitant electricity amounts anymore. And if we're going to continue this way, it means that more and more people are not going to be able to then pay. It means more and more people are going to then start connecting more and more illegally, and which is not going to help any of the municipalities to come out of the financial distress that they find themselves in. And this is why we are saying here, the court must now give us a remedy, because the ANC clearly has failed to come up with a plan to arrest this issue. It is up to the courts and us to then fight a good fight for the people of South Africa. And hopefully we can get the majority of South Africans to join us on this fight that we are fighting. Thank you very much, Kwena. I'll hand over then to Premier Windy to then give us his experience.
Thank you very much, Solly. Good morning, everybody. You know that that increase is 31.4%, and we have an inflation rate at the moment of 4.7%. So an increase over the next 2 years, which is 6 times the inflation rate. Now that is just unacceptable. And the kind of increase that the citizens are given of this country in this environment, when we have such hardship from an economic point of view, that kind of increase just makes things worse. But let's put that increase on top of the costs, and you heard in the introductory remarks, it's almost R1 billion a day that this country is cost, or the cost of load shedding to this country's economy. If you add that to the 2 billion a day that we are paying as citizens for the debt servicing costs of our country, if you've seen of late the report on Transnet, the cost of Transnet's failures, that's another R1 billion a day. Let's not even talk about how many billions a day corruption costs the citizens of this country. So there's no wonder that we are feeling this absolute economic crunch that every single citizen is feeling every single day. Now, I'm going to talk about what we're doing in the Western Cape. We stand here as the DA. We stand here to really take this to court to say this is absolutely unconstitutional. We need to make sure that there is a proper plan. As Solly says, the ANC don't seem to have any plans. Now, in the Western Cape, we have a number of plans. I'll talk about the energy plan, but before I get there, let me talk about the jobs plan. So we've got a jobs plan, growth for jobs, and you've just seen the latest statistics now. Our unemployment rate, because we have a plan, is now down by 6.6%, the lowest unemployment rate in South Africa. 20.9% is our current unemployment rate, and reducing. We have a safety plan where in the previous quarter, murder was down by 14%. It's down this quarter by 5.5%. And in the areas that we are focusing, the highest murder rate areas in our province, we focus on 13 of those areas. It's down by 5.7%. So we have a plan, and you can see the data, you can see the statistics. Now with energy, we also have a plan. The beginning of this year, we put our plan together. The first was to put an energy council together. Second was to put a budget to the plan. And the plan's budget is 1.1 billion from the province. We then add to that budget our municipalities' budgets also for ending load shedding. And that total budget now is sitting at just under 7 billion rand in the Western Cape. 7 billion rand that we're spending on energy to make sure that we end load shedding in the Western Cape. The plan is going to give us 5,700 megawatts of power. At the moment, we use 4,000 megawatts at peak. We, over the next few years, are going to end up with 5,700 megawatts. That mitigates total risk. It removes Eskom from the equation and makes sure that through our municipalities and private sector partnership and investment, we will have enough power for the current demand and for economic growth into the future. If you can already see in the city of Cape Town, 2 levels of load shedding better off than the rest of the country, and that is changing fast. By next year, you'll see that move to 3 levels and then on to 4 levels. Other municipalities are joining them. In George Municipality already, we've got lots of investment happening, and you can already see the reduction in demand from Eskom because we've put the mitigation measures in place. We're going out to tender at the moment in the city for further power. 200 megawatts of renewable has already been tendered, a further 500 megawatts of power in tender at the moment. Stellenbosch just about to go out on tender. Mossel Bay, Saldanha Bay just about to go out on tender. I've spoken about George. And so you can already see the municipalities are stepping up within this plan. We've also got our own IRP in process. That's an integrated resource plan for the province, which decides what the energy mix is going to be like. Renewable, gas, it could be SMR, small containerized nuclear, it could be a range of energy supply. That process is happening right now. But the most important thing is that we're going to have a diversified input of energy into our system that's going to lower our carbon footprint, make us much more marketable to the world. Our plans are also rolling out within our municipalities where we've put emergency money in place. We put 87 million rand in place at the beginning of this year. I've visited most of the municipalities already where generator systems, emergency generator systems are put in our sewage works and in our water works, because we cannot let sewage run in the roads while there's level 6 load shedding. We cannot have no water for our citizens while there's level 6 load shedding. So those emergency generation systems are in place quickly and to avert the current crisis while we are rolling out more sustainable options. So in our health systems and in our schools, we are rolling out solar PV with battery backup systems to make sure that our hospitals and our education spaces are sustainable through this energy crisis and moving into the future. 10 of our hospitals are already level 6 exempt. We're putting in a dedicated power line to the Khayelitsha Hospital so that they can also be exempt. 193 of our healthcare facilities have already got emergency generation systems in place. 68 of them run on smart meter data management systems. We have inverter systems running now at 51 of our clinics this year and a further 87 to go next year. These are the kind of plans that we are putting in place. We've got a pilot running at the moment with Wheeling, where private sector can put up power in a system, and we will wheel that power from somewhere in the province to demand and buy it from another buyer in another part of the province or another municipality. We've also looking to the future with looking at a gas procurement process that is also being launched at the moment. We've got a green hydrogen plan into the future. We've got systems that are looking at pooled buying and municipal microgrids, because this is how we are going to manage the future modern energy system in the Western Cape. 24 of our municipalities have already got small-scale embedded generation approval, and 21 of them can buy power from the individual, from a citizen or a business who puts power back into the system. So these are the kind of plans that the province has put in place. And what I'd like to say, Solly, is that when the DA is in power next year in Gauteng, you can be rolling out exactly the same kind of plan in Gauteng, where we put plans in place and those plans turn to reality And at the end of the day, it's the citizens that will benefit. It's the economy that will benefit. And I really look forward to sharing these plans with other DA municipalities and with other DA governments into the future. Thank you. Thank you.
Good morning, colleagues. We are here in Gauteng because this is the next center of political power in the election next year. But we're also meeting here because we have a government that no longer cares here in South Africa. And so for us, this is important because we are fighting for you as we are fighting against this 31.4% increase in the electricity tariffs, because as my colleague said, it's unsustainable and unaffordable. People are suffering on a daily basis at schools, at creches, at homes, at small businesses, in hospitals all over South Africa. People are suffering as a result of this increase in the electricity tariffs, but they genuinely suffer because we have a government that simply does not care. More load shedding means more people will lose their jobs. And this is a government that simply does not care. And so, for us, this is a tragedy that we must now be here in court to fight a 31.4% additional corruption tax on the electricity tariffs, because the electricity tariffs is a form of subsidy for more corruption by the ANC, more corruption by Eskom. And we are here because we see the impact on the food prices, we see the impact on inflation, we see the impact on the cost of diesel. All of this bring more hardships to ordinary people, and the ANC and Eskom simply do not care. The ANC and Eskom is responsible for load shedding in South Africa. And now they want to increase the tariffs. But you get less electricity, you pay more, and you get more load shedding. This is why we are here in the High Court, here in North Gauteng, because we believe this must be stopped. But you can stop it, because next year is a very important, vital election taking place in South Africa. The ANC has cut your power. But next year, during the election, you can now go to the main switch and switch off the power of the ANC. But there will be two switches. The first switch is to switch off the power of the ANC. The second switch is to switch on your power and give power back to the people. And that is why this election is an important election taking place next year. But in order to switch on your power, you need to make sure that you are registered for this election. This is the most important election. If you want to switch off the ANC's power and switch on your power, we must make sure that everybody is registered to take part in the election next year. Because this is an important election. It's a make or break election. There's no off, nooit. It's now or never. And so this election, we must make sure that we are registered. And you can make sure that you are registered by going to check.da.org.za. I repeat, to make sure that you are registered for the election next year, to switch on your power, to switch off the power of the ANC, visit check.da.org.za. But the DA, as you heard from Premier Alan Winde, we have a plan. Next year, with a multi-party coalition government, we will focus on three main issues. Number one, electricity security. Number two, jobs to stimulate the economy. And thirdly, focusing on crime prevention. But we must stop corruption at Eskom. We must stop corruption of the ANC. As Alan Winde explained, part of our plan countrywide will be to allow for an energy mix. We will privatize the energy generation and energy distribution and bring in more independent power producers. We will also cut the red tape in the energy circle. Very important, we will scrap the Ministry of Electricity, because since his appointment, we have more load shedding, more increases. We will scrap the Ministry of Electricity. And very important, to cut the red tape in the energy sector. And so we will make sure that we next year kickstart the economy, making sure that we have an independent resource plan that will make sure that we have sustainability in our energy supply. This is vital, this is critical, because we have a government that simply don't care. But you have the power to switch off the power of the ANC and switch on the power of the people. And we ask you to use your vote responsibly next year, because we want to grow the economy. Gauteng is the center of the economic power in South Africa. And this is the place that where we want to see massive economic growth. But you cannot have economic growth without sustainable energy provision. And we have a plan from the Western Cape, and we will implement that plan right here in Gauteng, because next year a new government is coming to Gauteng, but also a new government is coming to the union buildings. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'd just like to greet my colleagues from Gauteng and thank all the media for coming here today for this very important press conference outside a court at which some very important cases are going to be heard this week. My job is to tell you what those cases are about and why they are important for every single South African. You've heard from Premier Winde why people in the Western Cape can look forward to energy security within 2 years. Load shedding will decrease systematically as our own generation continues and as alternatives to Eskom are put online through private power producers and small-scale embedded generation. But the DA cares about the whole country. We care about every place, even where the voters have chosen not to put us in government. Where they have, we can improve situations, and where they've put us into government for 15 years, as they have in the Western Cape, things can get dramatically better. But we will never ever give up on the rest of South Africa, and we are here in court today because our purpose is to ensure that the rest of South Africa is not left behind. Now, these crucial court cases are to ensure that responsibility for this crisis is acknowledged and laid where it must be, because that has crucial consequences. You've seen that load shedding is called economic collapse. Economic collapse causes massive unemployment. And in that context, the government still sees fit to raise the electricity tariff by 31.4% over 2 years in terms of the multi-year price determination. Now, we obviously could not sit back and allow that to happen. So we have done several things. The first of those things is to seek a declarator from the court that it is a complete violation of the human rights of South Africans to face this electricity crisis and the constant load shedding that it has brought with it. If you look at Chapter 2, the Bill of Rights of the Constitution, you will see that just about every one of those rights is violated by the electricity crisis in South Africa. And of course, it is the government's duty to defend people's rights. That is one of the most important duties of a government and a state, is to defend people's rights. And in terms of the president's own version of events, it was their failure to listen to and implement the 1998 white paper that we ended up in this mess. And the president has accepted that they are responsible. The ANC, Eskom, the government are responsible for the energy crisis in South Africa and for load shedding. But we need a declarator from court to confirm that and to say to all of South Africans, this is where the problem emanated, a failed government and a failing state. Now that is important, not just to make the point, which is still important, but it is important because it opens the way for us to find the solution. You know that South Africa has an energy action plan, and we have absolutely no confidence in this government in being able to implement that plan. In fact, now shortly after the appointment of a Minister of Electricity, we're at stage 6 load shedding for the foreseeable future, despite the fact that that same minister said the plan was working, which was why load shedding decreased. His words were not even cold, and we were in the middle of stage 6 again. So we have no confidence that this government is going to be able to implement its own plan or solve the problem that it created. And so, once we've had a declarator from the court, which we hope to get, that the crisis is a result of this government's failure when it had a duty to protect people's rights and protect energy security, once that has been declared, then we can draw the safe conclusion that the government is not able to resolve the problem without independent oversight. And so we'll be asking the court to appoint a special master, what in law is called a special master, to oversee, to regulate, to monitor the implementation of that plan. Because then we will get an independent insight into what is happening. We will be able to believe the reports we are getting. The person appointed will have to have real expertise to do the job. We've got proposals in our court paper as to how we should go about that. And once we've got a person there who we can trust and who can do the projections into the future accurately, South Africa can prepare for the reality, not wishful thinking, not political hot air, and we can go into the future on that basis and hold government to account on that basis. The second critical part of our case, the first part was to declare this constitutionally incompetent or contrary to the Constitution. Incompatible with the Constitution is precisely the words that we've used. The next step is then to challenge the price increase. Now we are doing that on the basis of the fact that we believe Section 15(1)(e) of the Electricity Regulation Act has been misinterpreted, which means that NERSA has imposed a tariff increase without taking note of crucial data that it should have. Now this is very complex in the court papers. I've read it through all very carefully, and I'll try and distill it for you. There are two stages in the tariff determination, the tariff price determination. The first step is the multi-year plan. It's a multi-year plan in which the electricity price is projected over several years. And the next stage is working from that, what's called the ERTSA, the establishment of the tariff increase for the year. But what we have established is that crucial public participation was not done in the multi-year price determination phase, which meant that the cross subsidies to the poor were not adequately considered. We know that people cannot afford this 31.4% increase over 2 years, and we believe that if the data had been taken into account, this increase would not have been put on the table. And because the crucial public participation phase was omitted, that data was not taken into account of the impact on the poor, and we are asking for NERSA to be able to go back for a period of 6 months and remedy that failure and come back to us with a redetermined price that is more affordable because it takes subsidies into account and it takes public participation into account. So our case is based on two legs. One, declaring the government's actions as inconsistent with the Constitution and therefore needing to appoint a special master who will report to the court. And number two, establishing and instructing NERSA to go back and redetermine the electricity price increase, taking the proper data into account. Those are our pleadings before this court, and if we succeed, it will be a massive victory for poor South Africans and for South Africans everywhere, not just in the Western Cape. Thank you.
Perfect. No, thank you so much. We can now take questions. I'll take 5 at a time and we can start from there. And please address it to the leader you want to address the question to. If there are any. Okay. No, perfect. Thank you very much for coming there.
This is to Ms. Helen Zille. You spoke about a special... You spoke about a special master that you would want to be appointed. Do you have anyone in mind?
We're not going to name names at this point, but our court papers have suggested that all parties be allowed to propose people, and we certainly have in mind some very strong experts and expertise that we believe should be injected into this process. So we will come up with a nomination. But we need to have someone that all South Africans can trust, that we don't have to listen to Sputler making promises that within the week are shown to be hollow. We need to know what is happening and we need to know what's going on. And it's important to say that if the court appoints a special master, which we hope they will do, it's going to be not the first time. There's a precedent for this. You'll remember when there was the SASSA grants crisis, another one's coming, but it's the one before that I'm talking about now. The court appointed a special master because they declared that the department was unable to solve that problem. We want the same declaration here, that the government caused this crisis, it can't solve this crisis, we are not getting fed the truth, and we need a special master. That is basically what it is.
Right, no, thank you. As you can see, the DA does have a plan. And the reality is that this load shedding crisis is at the core of so many issues that we face as South Africans. With the rising costs of living, the DA will consistently be at the forefront of fighting for all South Africans. So thank you very much for your time today. And I think we can proceed with the events. Thank you.